Hey guys, it's Ashley Kirkwood with the Speaker Ready Cash podcast, and I'm super excited to come to you guys today to talk about the power of decision, And this is one of those things that I think my husband may pop in on. We'll see, right? We'll see. But we're going to be talking really quickly about the power of decision. And the reason we're talking about this is because right now you are in the midst of planning for 2021. What a year 2020 has been. So kudos to you for surviving, and for some of you thriving in 2020. That's nothing to downplay. That's a really big deal. So kudos to you all who have made it through this year. If you are watching live and you're joining in, just, drop a hello. Hey, Kelly, how are you? So I am going to be talking about the power of decision today. And the reason I'm talking about this is because a lot of us are business owners. We're entrepreneurs. We're speakers. If you are a business owner, just drop owner in the comments. If you're a corporate hero, drop corporate hero in the comments. And if you're someone who is in between, like you're not sure just yet, then just drop a question mark in the comments. So we're going to be talking about the power of decision. So as you're planning for next year, what I want you to do is really watch your language around certain things. And this came up for me because I was in a group earlier and someone made a comment. This guy had posted about how his speaking fee is $25,000. And he was like, my speaking fee is $25,000 and I don't let people, charge me less than that. And someone made a comment that it was like, that's great. I can't wait till I get there. And my response to that comment was, you just need to decide. You just need to decide. And let's talk specifically about rates, pricing, and value. All it takes for you to change your rate is for you to decide that you are going to increase your rate. Now, here's the thing that I want everyone to be really, really clear on that's listening to this. The only thing that has happened to me since changing my rates, increasing my rates in the marketplace, is that I have made more money. Nothing else has happened. No one's threatened me. No one's cursed me out. No one's yelled at me. I've just made more money. And it all started with a decision. And the reason I think a lot of us struggle with the decision part of it is because we think that we want to make more money in our business, but it's not a need. It's not a need. We want to make more money in our business and it's not a need. And so when you want something, but it's not a need, it's not a must have, it's a like to have, it's an okay have, it's a, if it happens, it's great. If it doesn't happen, it's fine too. What happens is your mind puts that in the I'll get to it later category. And so you don't move, you don't take the action that's necessary in order for you to get the results that you say you desire. So for those of you who are planning for 2021, I just need you to decide that 2021 is going to be a good year, regardless of what has presented itself to you and your family this year. After you make that decision, because everything starts with a decision. Then you have to go into planning mode. And one of the things that I have learned, and I've been talking to some experts about recently, is how productivity actually manifests itself. So how are some people extraordinarily productive and other people are not very productive? And they were explaining to me that there's something that happens when you make an initial decision, like you make the initial investment in a program, right? You're super excited about it. You're like, oh my God, it's gonna be the best program ever. We have some folks who've joined the Speaker Ready Cash Academy. They're always super excited about it, pumped, all that great stuff. And then sometimes after you make a decision, there's this moment that's like, oh crap, now is this going to work for me? But then there's another moment when you actually see the work that's required to get the results you want from the program. What typically happens then is it's like you start going into, and I don't even have the words pulled up for it. I should have had the PDF pulled up because the guy was explaining it to me so beautifully. But what happens is you go into this state of mind where it's like, okay, now it's time to get realistic. I've made these lofty goals. I've made these big aspirations. I've made these amazing declarations, but it doesn't feel good to do the work. And so I'm going to just, put it off. I'm not going to make it happen. I'm not going to do what's required to get it done. I'm not going to do the work that's required to back up the decision that I've made. And so now you're in this mode where it's like, okay, I've made the big decision. I've made the investment in my future. Part two typically is like, okay, now I have to do the work, and doing the work, the behind the scenes work, doesn't necessarily feel good. So I'm going to put it off and I'm going to procrastinate. Right. And the way that has made sense to me in my life, in terms of how I make decisions, how I'm able to get things done, is that your belief has to be so unreasonably strong in your ability to be successful that it can literally, like, it can operate outside of your feelings. Like, your belief has to be so strong in what you're doing, what you're promoting, what you're moving towards, that it can operate outside of your feelings, outside of, I don't feel like doing this today, or I don't feel like waking up and getting things done today, because everyone has those moments. But in order for you to get to where you really want to be, it takes a decision. It takes a decision. And if we're being honest, some of us haven't even written out the big goal or the big plan because we want to avoid accountability to greatness at all costs. We just want to avoid it at all costs. We're scared that if we say, this is what I really want, I want to land a 6-figure contract, I want to land a 5-figure contract, I want to land paid speaking engagements consistently, I want to invest in my business, then we'll be accountable to that big vision that we've spoken out. And so here's the thing that I want you all to recognize as you think about setting your rates for 2021, as you think about who you're going to work with for 2021, who you're going to be investing with for 2021, what time investments you're going to make for 2021. What is the decision that is going to drive all of your actions, and how committed are you to the result that you say you want? Like, literally, how committed are you to that result? Because I'm telling you, everything starts with a decision. And think about this practically. The Apple that we know it now, started with a decision. Like, the founder had to decide they were going to actually take the next step. And for some of us, we can get to these big goals that we have. We just haven't made a decision yet. We just have not made a decision. So I think Chris Kirkwood is going to come on and join us, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and we plan to talk about this. Come on, babe. For those of you listening, Chris just entered the room. We plan to talk about this, and I don't even have my other phone to do it on Instagram, but we plan to talk about this yesterday. So we're pushing it off to today. So I'm going to put a banner up for those of you who are just joining. So to recap, we're talking about the power of decision, and then we're also going to talk about the power of investment, and the power of explaining the investments you need to make as an entrepreneur to your partner, whether or not they're actually an entrepreneur themselves. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I talk to women and men all day. And I'll be honest with you, the women that I talk to are always like, all right, let me talk to my husband about this investment. The men that I talk to actually never tell me they're going to talk to their wives about the investment. And I don't think Chris has ever talked to me about an investment before either. So I'm not sure what that's about. But that's just something that I don't know. I don't know what you all want to do with that. That's just been my truth. So I wanted to bring, I had my mouse upside down. I'm finally working with the desktop computer. I wanted to bring Chris Kirkwood on, my husband and ops director, to talk a little bit about how to explain these decisions and these investments that you need to make to your spouse, whether or not your spouse is an entrepreneur. Okay. So Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself. They can hear you even before they can see you. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the Speaker Ready Cash audience, and I'll move this over.
Is it still morning?
Is it still
morning? Good afternoon. Morning? Afternoon. Yeah, I know. And it's COVID time. I lose sense of time. It's just like all one continuous day. But good afternoon. Again, I am Chris Kirkwood, one half of the power couple that is Ashley and Chris Kirkwood. I am father of Christelle Kirkwood. You see my shirt here, raising royalty. Check it out. Yeah. So but what am I supposed to do? Introduce myself? Yeah, I think you've spoken enough about me. Formerly, I have a formal background in education, specifically nonprofit sector, working with students in post-secondary education and post-secondary pathways. I have been around entrepreneurs my entire life. My father was an avid entrepreneur. He just did a lot of deals with a lot of different people, and I got to see hands-on. I got to go to some of those meetings and check that out.
Awesome. Okay. So one of the things that comes up a lot when I'm talking to women about making the investment, particularly when we're talking about large legal investments with my firm, Mobile General Counsel, or large coaching investments with my company, Speak Your Way to Cash, the number one thing that I get from women who are interested in the program is I want to talk to my partner about it. So I remember when I was making investments and spending time in the entrepreneurship game, I would talk to you about them, but I wouldn't always consult you about them. But I did start doing that when the investment was larger. What would you say? How did you interpret investments I was making in my business? Like, did you understand why those investments in coaching and all of that was necessary? Or were you kind of like, I don't get why you're spending all this money on this stuff?
That question needs to be unpacked in a couple of different ways. One is, if there was a time that I did not fully understand what your business was, or understand what you were trying to activate. And so in those instances, I would say, like, I really didn't see the importance of it, because I didn't understand what the full big picture was. So it was kind of like a little bit frustrating, because why are you giving so much time, effort, energy, and money to this thing when I'm not sure that we fully understand what this is and what are the implications. But when I actually, and that there's a difference between consulting your business partner and consulting your husband, your spouse, or I know the PC term today is partner, but I think that's confusing, especially in this conversation. Your spouse, your significant other. When you consult your significant other, it's just about how much are you spending, and when are we going to expect a return on this? Is it something you're doing just to make you feel better or whatever? and that, that there was some of that, but mostly by the nature of our relationship, you consulted me on the actual benefit and the ROI factor of purchasing a certain product, or purchasing a certain training, or coaching, whatever that is. And so I had more of an understanding when you consulted me as a business partner.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think for me, and for a lot of people, I think once you cross that $15,000 mark for an investment, $10,000 mark for an investment, partners want to know, spouses want to know. In my instance, my husband wanted to know, like, okay, is this an instinctual decision, or is this a decision that's going to actually pay off?
Well, let's be clear. You said 15 and 10. Though that's a lot. That's a big chunk of change. You skipped a whole bunch of steps in between. There's some guys who are out here looking like, why are you spending $500 on this thing that, like
$500?
People, and that's not me. That's not me.
Right.
But there's people, I'm sure you have an audience of people whose husbands or whose wives or whose partners will say, like what's going on? And it may not be 500. It could be $1,000. It could be 500.
But I think you're right. So any amount of money. How do you explain that when the person?
You have to actually, one, if you believe, because you married to somebody, you must have thought that they had a certain level of education, or you respect them, or a certain level of genius. So they're not stupid, is what I'm trying to say. So go to them and share what your idea is, right? I know there's certain people who couples who move differently with their finances, but we share, we talk about it. We have some shared accounts, and there's some accounts that are not shared. So you have to have that conversation with the person and explain and let them know, like, this is my big picture, and these are the steps in between that I need to take in order to get to that big picture. And you trust that person, that person trusts you, then that conversation should come out with, okay, well, let's look at the pros and the cons. Is this something that we can do now? Is it something that we can't do now? Or is it something that can't wait? And you have to have those types of conversations with your spouse. If you're not having those types of conversations, then you both need to reevaluate what happened, because you should be able to have those types of conversations with the person you love, you sleep next to, And even if you are not a partner in their business, you're a partner in their lives. So the business has real deal implications for your life and your livelihood as a family.
It does. I think for me, and this was one of the issues that I feel like I had in the beginning, and we worked through it, but explaining the potential before there was any actual basis for that potential to become a reality. So I talk a lot about making a decision to be successful and then working towards it. And that requires you to make certain investments even before you see that everything is going to work out. And it's a faith and a belief that you may have personally that your partner may not share. So what do you think, being honest, what helped you get over that hump of like, she ain't making no money yet, to like, okay, she's going to be extraordinarily successful? And I mean, of course, now it's easy because the money is rolling in. We're doing well. You know what I mean? But how did you get over that hump beforehand? Like, what could I have said to you, or what could I have said that would have helped you to kind of see the vision that I had for the company at the time?
So in order for me to answer that fully, is to go back to like the first major, or one of the first major investments that we really made as a couple was you going to law school.
Yeah.
And there were a ton of steps that had to take place in order for us to get to that moment. But the real deal sign, like for me, that this is going to work out was when you move your job. You change jobs to have a job down the street from the law firm the law school that you were trying to get into.
Yeah,
that shows that'll show the level of commitment, and you went and you did everything that was necessary. So you showed that not only you didn't say that this is something I want, and there were no action, there was no fruit behind it. You said that was something you wanted, and you went for it, and so that's how we moved as a unit.
Yeah.
We had the conversation. We talked about the investment, and we were like, hey, we're going to do this. And we talked about what that meant for our lives.
Yeah.
There were some long nights. There was, I was a chauffeur. I was a study partner, and so those types of things. But that wasn't always easy. And so that process helped to shape and form how we had discussions around large, big purchases or large, big investments. And so that was kind of like, that helped us, and it was like a foundation. And so when we actually got to the entrepreneurship and you doing, businesses, because there were several in between, even from law school to now, there were several businesses that, and ventures that you went through.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I mean, I guess my question would be then, because I want this to be helpful for people who are in relationships, because a lot of what I hear, the private complaints that I hear from people are like, my partner isn't really, Crystal, my partner isn't really supporting just yet. What language, or how do you approach, and I'll just be gender specific here because of our situation. How do you approach a husband that is not supportive to, like, what language do you use, or what would be the most persuasive way to help make that person more supportive of you?
It's difficult for women to have that conversation with their men, their husbands, because it comes from an ego, like the hindrance and the backlash. It comes from a place of ego, and society tells us that men are supposed to be the provider and we're supposed to do this, and so to have your woman out here making bigger moves of ego, and society tells us out here making big moves or bringing in more money than you, it's sometimes difficult for men to see that and to hear that. What you have to do is really bring it back to them and let them know that this is our family. This is for our family. But you got to believe that as well. Like, this is for the success and legacy of our family,
right?
And learn how to include him in. Don't ask for his help, and then when he gives the help, then you say, well, you just don't understand. Then you have to help him to understand. Don't make him understand, but show him, explain certain terms, explain products, like walk through as if you were training him on the business. It doesn't mean that he has to be there every day, but he should have a general idea as to what you are doing. Like, walk through in that way, he can help you make decisions. He can help you hire. He can help you just walk through your decision-making process. And so you have to have a language of, this is for our family, and everything that you do can either help or hinder our family.
So you're saying that we basically have to deal with the ego.
Well, you've already been dealing with ego. That's nothing new. I mean,
right. That's nothing new.
That's nothing new. It's just, it's really, really, it is reorganizing the thought process.
Yeah.
Because men will see it as if she is trying to do better than me. It's not a competition when you're married.
Right.
Especially when you're married. Now, if you're dating, it's a little different. But I can speak from, because we've had these conversations, we've had these movements married.
Yeah.
We built this, we are building something together, and it has to be about your family, not about any one person.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It is sometimes really, really challenging though to navigate that when you're trying to, it's already hard being an entrepreneur and then having to explain it is very difficult, because we see things before they happen and we have to have that level of faith in order to step out there. So that can be a little bit tough. But when you are making those decisions, it sounds like what you're saying is, even if your partner, and let me know if this is right, because this is what I believe. I believe even if your partner doesn't agree with you and doesn't support you yet, you need to make the moves that you know you need to make in order to make the vision happen. Because as you start making moves, their belief will grow. People aren't going to have the same belief as you before you start moving. That's why everyone, I hear this all the time. People are like, people only want to mentor people that are already successful. Yeah. And that's by design, because once you are in movement, it is easier to attract. The reason why videos do so much better on social media than static images is because people are attracted to movement. They're not attracted to people staying still. If you're staying still, it's easy to be forgotten. If you're staying still, then no one's going to believe that you're making moves. So you can't just declare you're a boss without doing boss-like activity. But in that movement, you're going to attract even the people in your household to support you, because guess what? You're getting support from everyone else. No one wants to be left out of no one wants to be left off of a moving ship if it's going in the right direction. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. And I'm not saying that you stop everything that you're doing just to explain to them and wait for him to get an understanding of it and to sign off on approving it. What I'm saying is that if you want him to move with you, that is what you're going to have to do. That may be a one conversation, but if it's a real problem, it's going to be a series of conversations. It's going to be a series of actions, and not ostracizing him and his ideas as well is going to be a big thing. I've seen that with tons of women, just watching women and women bosses. You can't just expect for him that bosses. Boss women that your counterparts. I've seen sometimes when a person will say, well, I want him to have my back. He does have your back. Sometimes, right? If he's driving you to and fro events, if he's doing certain things at the household, if he's watching the kids while you're on videos, or if he's picking them up, back and forth to school, and so giving you a little bit of extra grace and space and time to move and do things, he has your back. If he shows up to your events and help you put up and set up and take down and talking to people and checking people in, then that's above and beyond. So you have to be realistic about who it is that you married, realistic about yourself, and understand where you can draw the line, where you can say, okay, this is how you can help, this is how you can impact, because it could just be let me make the moves.
Yeah. And I think too, it's also about making sure you don't set expectations for your marriage based on what you see in other marriages, because we have a very different way that we operate in our household, even than what our parents did. So we saw our parents operate in their marriages differently than how maybe we've decided to operate in our marriage. But at the end of the day, I think that the whole goal of me having Chris on and us having this discussion has really just been, it can really be, when I talk about making decisions, it's easier when you're single, I think when I was single, I was making decisions for me, period. Like it wasn't about a baby. It wasn't about a husband. It wasn't about any of those other factors. I was making decisions for me, primarily me and the people whose lives I wanted to impact. And so now having a family, it's a little bit different. And I'm sensitive to the fact that when I work with women who are married to men who have their back, to supportive partners, they are going to be making that decision with their partner in mind. And so I wanted Chris to come on to give his perspective, because he's been around entrepreneurship, but he hasn't decided yet to just jump out there and start his own brand. And so it's a little bit, I have to really talk him through if it's an A to Z decision, he wants to know what's going on at G, at H, at J. Like he wants to know the actual steps. And I know for a lot of, if you're a creative like me, it's like, no, it's a great idea. Like, let's just do it. And he's like, no, because he has to be the check and balance to me just being a quick decision maker. So I wanted to get his perspective on that, because I know a lot of people do.
and let me be clear. My questioning and my, the reason why Ashley just said that, make the statement that, she has to I ask her tons of questions about things, is because the way I process making decisions is I'm a big person about putting the pros and the cons next to each other and seeing, making sure that we both understand what the benefits, what the downsides, what the cost of the investment is, not just the financial cost, but the time cost, so that is the way I process information. And so when she brings a question to me, she already knows that that's my process. Like I'm going to ask those types of questions because that's how I make my decisions. And, I believe that the way we've been able to do it together has paid off for us, because, sometimes we do need a quick, you do need a decision quick, fast, in a hurry. And sometimes you do need to assess.
Yeah, you do. And one of the things I wanted to bring up while Chris is on, because I think he can back me up on this too, the way that you all should think about making your investments and your investments in professional development and your decisions on that end is the same way that I see Chris analyze stock investments. So when he's about to make an investment in a particular company for stock reasons, he's looking at, all right, where will this, someone says it's a man thing. And so one of the things that he does when he's making an investment on stocks is like, okay, is this company projected to go up in price? If it is, then I'm going to invest in this company now because I'm going to see a huge return on my investment. And I know that once it goes up so high in price, I'm going to be priced out of that investment opportunity. I do not see people in the professional development space making a similar analysis. So yes, you want to see what's reasonable now, what you can afford, etc. But so many people have come to me like, man, I wish I would have invested with you a year ago because your price has gone up. And because that price has gone up, I am priced out of making that investment at the current time. Now, if you know that if you're like, okay, there's like 5 coaches I want to work with. There's one who I know for a fact is going to get me to where I need to go. Like in Speak Your Way to Cash Academy, it's the only program that teaches speakers to start at the top of the market with 5 and 6 figure corporate investments or 5 or 6 figure corporate speaking proposals versus working your way up from the bottom with those $1,000 and $2,000 proposals, which ain't nothing wrong with that, but that ain't what we teaching. So if you know, like I can reasonably do it now, but but if it goes to 30K, I'm priced out. Then you need to make that investment now, especially if you've done your research, you've done your analysis in it. And I don't see us making investments in professional development in the same way that people make investments in corporations. But that's how, because of the way he analyzes our portfolio, and he's been crushing it, by the way, because of the way he analyzes our portfolio, that's how I've been making my investments in different people that I'm going to invest in and work with. Because you know that if someone is doing their job, they're doing a good job, you're seeing their client testimonials, their revenue is going up, they're crushing it, they're consistent, their price is going to go up. And if you aren't developing with them, tracking with them, growing with them, your business is growing and all that, you run the risk of being priced out of a great opportunity. And you run the risk of missing an opportunity to get a return on investment that's higher because the initial investment is, where it's at now. So y'all need to think about it like that. Okay. My husband analyzes things the same way. Yeah. Chris he's really analytical. So he's not going to let me make a bad decision or an uninformed decision rather, because he he's one to make like, did you ask them this in the interview? Did you ask them that? And it's things that I forget because I'll get excited. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I don't. So I'll say another thing is I am not easily moved by most things. Money, fame, like all of that stuff really doesn't drive me. But what does drive me is people's actions. So I also look at, and I'll ask Ashley to look at how a certain person moves online, or like do they have recommendations? Do they have strong connections and strong ties to other people? Like, how have they moved previously? There are some people who are like saying, they can help you with, 6-figure returns or whatever, like, high percentage returns. And I'm like, well, go back and look and see the people that they worked with before. What are they saying? What do other people, other clients say about that person and how they move? And sometimes, even if it is a high return on investment, sometimes the process is too great it's just too great to go through. Certain people that I have, and said, like, suggested you don't deal with them, for the sole purpose of how they move and how they operate.
That's a character thing too, and I think that piece of it has to come through, because I have met people, and I'll be honest with you guys. And I won't say names. I'm not that type of person. I mean, if I go to a bad restaurant, I will post the restaurant, but I'm not going to say names of individual coaches. But I've met people in the coaching space, right? In this professional development space, who have been exceptionally talented, who've been amazing at, getting results, but I just didn't like their character. Like, I just felt like the way, because for me, because I'm a Christian, like, that's a part of my value system. That said, it's not like whatever. I'm a Christian. That is my value system, and I'm very firm on that. So it doesn't just matter to me that you can help me get a result. It matters to me the way in which you help me to reach it. Is the process or the strategy that you're about to teach me in alignment with integrity or not? Because if it's not, I'm not really interested in that. And Chris is the same way. Like, we like working with good people. I'm a relationship person. I'm not like let me get your money, and then I don't know. I guess people think some people are more transactional. Like, after they get the check, it's like, oh, I don't care about this person. I don't care about their experience. I already got paid. Like, I'm not that way. So I'm big on relationships, building relationships long-term, seeing growth long-term. So for me, in order for me to be relational with you, you got to have character and values that are in alignment. And Chris is very similar with that. Like, we're not trying to be doing business with shady people.
I agree. I don't like shady people. In fact, I'm an introvert. Being around a large groups of people is not my thing anyway.
Right. So especially the shady ones.
So the people that I choose to spend time with, or the people that I choose, we choose to be around, they definitely have to have character. They definitely have to move in integrity. And they just, we just want people, good people around us, right? I think that is something that's kind of like, that has been taken for granted for so long.
Oh, it's taken for granted.
And it's just, I can go on a whole soapbox about social media, reality TV, and all that stuff. But like, what happened to like just regular people who are just good people, who care about relationships, care about doing good business? That's what we really want to get back to.
Yeah, Kelly says, I'm an introvert too, Chris. I don't like shady people. Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I think, and it's also strange to me because I am not the type of, I see a lot of this character trait as well. Who you learn from, you become in some sense. Like, some people, they'll say like, oh yeah, you could, like, I saw one of my friends posted online, like, oh, you can always tell who's being coached by who. Okay, sometimes you can. And that's not a bad thing. But sometimes it can be, because on the coaching space, a lot of coaches, I think they make the mistake of believing that they need to create many versions of themselves. But someone with high moral character is like, I'm going to give you the strategies, but I want you to operate fully in who you are. And I'm okay with you not being and doing everything the exact way that I teach it. Right. I give you room to grow and to become who I need you to become. But that just comes from not being a possessive coach. Like, not being someone that's like, right, you don't do it my way. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to work. It's going to fail. And I don't like that type of energy.
You're that type of person, but I think there's so many more people. So many people who would say, well, I'm not going to waste my time with you if you're not going to listen to what I'm saying. If you're not going to do it,
and I hear that, and I'm like,
if you're not going to follow my directions to the T, it's one thing to say, hey, I'm giving, this is good advice, and I won't continue to belabor the point. Like you can take it or leave it, but don't come back to me if you do something opposite of what I've said to do. Don't come back to me and say, well, this and this. Can you help me? No, because that's a waste of time. But you can't just control people and tell them they have to move the way you said to move, because that's manipulation. That's control. And that is, then are you helping a business? If you are, it's your business. It's only your business. So it's a continuation of your own business.
It's ego.
That's ego. That's pride. And that's not how you want to operate it either.
No. And I think for me, here's how that shows up. We've had people who were like, okay, in the past, for whatever reason, they're like, all right, I'm gonna go and hit up this like really cheap lawyer, even though you did an amazing job for me. I made up this cheap lawyer because I'm trying to save some money. And of course, cheap lawyer X screws up, right? They come back. I know people who will be like, oh, if you go over there, you can never come back here because you defied blah, 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 blah. But to me, that's transactional. The relational approach would be like, girl, I get it. Things happen and I don't know your situation, but if you want us to help you, we're going to help you. And sometimes we've done it without even charging an invoice for every little email. It's just, it is. And I think that this is old school business principles that we've gotten away from in the online space because we get too caught up in what people say we are. We get too caught up in the celebrity of it all. Like, oh, I got fans. You don't follow what I say, do. That pitch ain't gonna work. Like, that's kind of stupid and it doesn't really make sense. And it's operating from like a lack mindset. It just doesn't really make sense. But you're right. There are a lot of people like that, that operate in a very lack mindset. Like they live in lack city.
Yeah, people like to be able to say I can say one thing online and people will move and flock that way. People like that. That's some people,
power.
That's power. That's influence, and that is it's one thing that we see kind of controls, especially here in our country. But if you walk in that power, that influence, and that control, it could ultimately be the thing that takes you down.
It can because you don't have freedom to make mistakes. And so with you all who are listening and who are listening to this on the podcast or watching live, one of the things, and if you all have any questions before we hop off in the next few minutes, just let us know. But one of the things I want you guys to think about in terms of who you're going to invest with, the decisions you're going to make is, am I operating and getting coaching from people who give me grace to be me? Right? Because you don't want to invest with someone, invest your dollars with them, and then they don't give you any ability to grow into the ultimate version of yourself. Also, what I see a lot is people's vision is bound by those around them. So if your mom says, you'll never be anything and you live up to that, like it's because that's the vision that's around you. The people who get out of that typically have mentors and visionaries that they're looking to outside of themselves. And it doesn't mean you have to have parents who give you everything. It doesn't mean you have to go to the best schools, but it does mean you may have to read some books by some big visionaries. It does mean you have to make sure that you aren't hiring coaches from the broken place within yourself that tells you you can't be good enough. So you hire a coach that you're comfortable with versus the person that's going to stretch your vision. Personally, I'm going to stretch your vision. I'm going to challenge you to be bigger. I'm going to do all that stuff. But what I'm not going to do is talk down to you or talk down to your vision or talk like I'm not going to, do all that. Like I'm not, talking bad about you online and, oh, you think so small. If I say you think small, it's going to be only to like build you up, not to like, just annihilate where you're at now. So you gotta consider these things as you think about the decisions and the investments that you're going to make in the future, and then be ready. Like Chris said, if you want a partner, like a real partner in this thing, in your spouse, then you're going to have to take the time and the patience to explain to them the decisions that you're making. Anything to add, honey?
I would say, in addition, I will admit that because we started without any of this stuff, it was, I think, it's going to be different than other couples just because we're all different people, but it may be a little easy. It's easier to start and build together than if you're single and you've built your company, your empire. You already have products, you already have a business, and now you're seriously dating somebody, or you are newly married. That will bring its own types and levels of complications and hardships and difficult conversations. But what I do want to say is, have the conversations, be prepared, write it down, and make sure you have your intent. One of the biggest dividers and separators between Ashley now and way back when is her why. When she was single, it was I think she wanted to have influence, and she wanted to do these things, make a name for herself. Money, like, and there's nothing wrong with those things. But when we got married and she, took on entrepreneurship afterwards, her why became different. It was rooted in something. It was something else, right? It was something that was beyond her. And that's how I make my investments in the market. It's what could give me the greatest return. What businesses can I see, have a long-term future? I'm willing to wait for some things, but there's some things, that I'm looking to make a quick return out of. But the reason why I do it is because it's for my family. And your why has to be beyond who you are as an individual. It's not to say that you won't benefit from it, but I'm making sure I'm doing this, so I may sacrifice some things in the meantime, because I understand that long term it's going to be greater for my family, my future, my legacy.
Yeah. And so as an activity to wrap this up, like, one of the things I would recommend is you have some time to yourself to just reflect and write it down. It doesn't have to be in a beautiful journal that you keep forever, but just like, in 2021, I will have a list. Have some business goals, have some personal development goals, have some personal goals like health, fitness, mental health, fitness, physical health, all that stuff. And just say, like, what you will do in 2021 versus what you plan to do, or what you would like to do, or what you want to do. What are the things that you are deciding to do in 2021? And as it relates to your speaking business and your rates, don't be afraid to just decide that your rate is higher. And then don't be afraid that if someone doesn't give you that rate, to walk away from that deal. Because the biggest mistake I see speakers make and entrepreneurs make is they make a decision, but they don't believe in the decision that they made. And so they backtrack. And so the decision has no weight. And what happens when you do that is you basically tell yourself subconsciously, you can't be trusted. So you say you're going to do all these things, you don't do them. And maybe you don't even tell anyone, but if the only person you told was yourself, now you've lied to yourself. And so it becomes even more difficult to hold yourself accountable and to be productive and to get things done. So don't go back and forth. Make that decision. If you're interested in working with me in 2021, the ways to do it are either a VIP day or joining Speak Your Way to Cash Academy, which is accepting students. So DM me about that, or make sure you apply for the private training. Click the link. This is recorded at the end of November. Next week is the holiday party. December 4th?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Next week is the holiday party, December 4th. If you're listening to this, December 4th, 2020 is our holiday party at our firm. It is going to be fabulous and outstanding. If you missed it, if you listen to this after December 4th, you missed it. It was amazing. Just trust me on that. But if you are listening to this before December 4th, you should 100% come. It's AshleyNicoleKirkwood.com/holiday party. It's totally free, totally fun. We're going to record it in my new office. I cannot wait to show you guys the space, and also to do the entrepreneur's address and give out resilience awards. So sign up for that. It's free. Invite your family, invite your mom and them. It's going to be dope. And it's free because we want to celebrate this year. So much has gone on in this year that is not fun. We want to celebrate some positive people, doing some positive things in the year. All right. So I will talk to you guys later. Thanks so much for joining. If you have questions after the fact, drop them in the chat. Me and Chris will come back and check them out. And I will talk to you guys later.